Hey and welcome to our tutorial. Today we will continue with drawing shapes inside Microsoft Word using Visual Basic for applications, that is using macro, and we will use polar coordinates, same as in last tutorials. So this is what we have from the last time. We were able to draw the stars and the sun-like shapes and all those kinds of gears. Today we will try to draw blobs and badges using the very same method, that is using the polar coordinates. Now let's briefly talk about the polar coordinates. Usually when we think about drawing points inside or shapes inside Microsoft Word, we are using X and Y value, but there is the other way how to define a point position in the space. If we have the origin in here, 0 and 0 degrees, we can say that point up here has a certain distance from the origin point, being the R as the radius, and certain angle, which is a theta. Now we cannot just simply say or tell Word to draw a point on a position r and theta. First we have to convert this to a Cartesian coordinate system, which requires x and y value, x being the r, the radius, times cosine the angle theta, and y being the radius times sine the angle theta. Now if we just specify the shape as the r being the same value for each angle, what we will get would be a circle, or something like a circle. This should be around the origin point, of course. Previously we have shown that if we change the radius for each point to a different value, if we make some point closer to the center and some point far away from the center like this, what we will get would be a star shape or the gear shape if we change it a little bit more. Today we will not use the if condition, but we will use the sine function as the radius. So the sine function looks like this. This is a sine function. If we use this as a radius, if we wrap it around the circle, so if we wrap it around the circle, what we will get would be like a badge. This is so something like this. This will be like a badge with some, nicely rounded edges. So let's see if we can actually do this inside macro. So I will jump to our previous document. This is what we have from the last time. If I open the macro to draw the polygon, if I edit this macro, you can see I do have this macro. We have this number of segments, which also sets the size of the array which holds all the points. Then we have the radius, the angle, object color, and x and y origin. We set the x and y origin to some random value, and we set the radius based on the angle. So we either say to 100 or 80. We will actually not use this, so I will comment this out. But instead we will use this angle to feed in the radius. So we'll say that the radius would be some value, for example 80 plus the sine function of the angle. And the angle will give us value between -1 and 1, so we have to still multiply by something, for example multiply by 10. So the sine angle multiplied by 10 will give us values from -10 to 10, which we will add to 80, so we will get values for radius going from 70 to 90. So let's see what this does. If I run this, we are getting a circle. We don't see any blobs, and that's because we are feeding in the angle value, which goes from 0 to 2 pi, so only one turn or one section of the sine function. What we actually have to do is we have to multiply the angle bar by certain amount. If I multiply by 2, we will start seeing some shape, but I have to set it to a higher value, maybe like 3 or maybe like 4, so you can actually see those spikes. Now you can see some of those sides are really not very smooth. That's just because we don't have enough segments. We have to raise the number of segments to maybe, I don't know, 256. So it's really smooth, and now you will see that there is something strange going on. Now previously it was enough to set the radius as a long, as an integer, because we don't need to have any precision. We were setting it to either 100 or 80, but now we need to set it to double because that will be a floating point value. So just by changing the type of the variable from long to double, now everything should be smooth. One thing to notice is it's somehow rotated to a certain amount, which may not be what you are looking for, and that's because the sine function starts from 0. So 0 will be here. It's going up and down, up and down. So what we can do is we can probably use a cosine function instead of sine function. So if we say to cosine instead, now it should be aligned so it's like a symmetric shape. And that's really all that's needed to create any kind of blob or badge. So if I increase the number of spikes to maybe like 16 or so and decrease the size of the spikes to maybe 5, we get this nice looking badge. Or I can go the other way around. I can just lower the number of spikes to 3 and increase it to maybe like 20. Then I will get this some kind of blob. I don't know how to properly name this shape. And of course I can do anything in between. And that's basically it for today's tutorial. This is great because those shapes, those badges are commonly used in graphic design, yet you don't have any choice or any way how to insert it from the Insert Shapes drop-down menu, because there is not such a shape as the badge. So the only 3 ways how to insert the shape would be to locate the font, which is this badge symbols, or to place a shape from other applications like Illustrator or Inkscape, or of course to use our custom VBA code to draw those shapes. So that's it. Thanks for watching.